Hello, everybody out there on Facebook. I hope you guys are having a good start to your Saturday. I'm going to share this to my group really quick before we get started. All right, there we go. Perfect. All right, hello, good morning, everybody. So today is day 2 of the Intuitive Eating Series workshop. And today we've got some big ones, and I'm really excited to share this topic with you because this one is one of the biggest concerns a lot of people have, and it kind of piggybacks on yesterday's. Hi Jenna, welcome. Hi Meredith, yay, I'm glad you guys are here. So if you're jumping on, say hi, post an emoji or wave or do something. For whatever reason, Facebook doesn't show me sometimes who's on. It'll sometimes say this person jumped on, but it won't say anyone's watching. It's really weird. So today we're talking about part 2 of the series of the Intuitive Eating Workshop. And today we are going to cover how to know when to stop eating and how to build self-trust. So 2 big topics that really go hand in hand. And I'm going to give you guys the kind of more edited version of what I would expand on in the intuitive eating paradigm, but you're going to get the same like nuggets. We take a deeper dive in the intuitive eating paradigm because we have more time, and I don't want to be on Facebook Live for too long on my personal page, just because I want to give you guys some quick wins so that way you can kind of, if you need this information, you can start to apply it to your life. Hi Meredith, happy Saturday. So today we're talking about how to know when to stop eating and building self-trust. And yesterday we talked about some really good stuff, and it kind of just piggybacks right on that. So if you did not watch yesterday's live, go watch that. After this, you can still watch this one and still get some good info, but it really does kind of correlate to yesterday's. So today, this is how to know when to stop eating. When I first started like really diving back into the beginning of my journey so that I could help other people with intuitive eating, I kind of forgot what it was like because I've been doing this for so long and it feels like second nature. So I've really had to get back into the mindset of what it's like to literally stop dieting and to kind of be at the beginning stages of intuitive eating, and tap back into some of those fears and apprehensions. And this is one that I see a lot of people talk about on the internet and that I've heard other people talk about. They're like, yeah, but like with dieting, like I weigh my food, I track everything, and I know exactly how much to eat, and I need 4 ounces of protein, and I need a handful of carbs, and I can only eat this many carbs a day. And, if I go to dinner, I know that I'm only supposed to eat this much. And we have, all these rules we've created in our heads, and then we follow from diets. And so when you stop dieting and you like switch to intuitive eating, you don't really know how much to eat because you've been following a protocol for so long. And as again with yesterday, I just want to preface this by saying this, when I say diets, I'm not talking about a medically prescribed diet for any type of health reasons or overweight risk issues. I'm talking about restrictive eating mostly. So what happens when people, and when I went through this, is when you stop dieting and you are allowed to eat as much food as you like or as you need or as you require, the waters can get a little muddy, all right? Because you can go from a place of not allowing yourself to eat as much to finally allowing yourself to. So a lot of people overeat in the beginning of their intuitive eating journey because they have gone from restriction now to an overabundance of food. And it's like taking a 2-year-old and giving them candy and then letting them run around the house with a knife. It's the best way I can describe it, which it's a weird way to describe it, but it's like, yeah, you get to like do all the things or like bang on as many pots as they want. You know how little kids pull everything out. It's kind of like that. And so something that was introduced to me, maybe about 2 years ago was what's called the hunger scale. And I had never heard of the hunger scale. So if you've heard of the hunger scale, post below, because this was a new concept to me. I'd not heard of this till recently, like maybe 2 years ago. And the hunger scale is this kind of tool that you can use. And some people do it from -10 to +10, and some people do it from 0 to 10. Now, I like to do it from a 0 to 10 because I like to keep things simple. And so you have on one end 0, which would be empty, and then 10, which would be extremely full. So if you've ever been out to a restaurant or to dinner or at home even, and you've ate so much food that you feel like you have to be dragged like out of the restaurant, you have to be like carried out, like you have to unbutton your pants. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like, please tell me I'm not the only one that's experienced this, because I totally have. Like, I've ate to the point where I'm like, oh, I feel sick. Like, that was a huge mistake. And so when people go from restriction, then being able to eat as much as they want, they tend to go way past satiety and go all the way to fullness. And it's like this tug of war. They don't know how to listen to their satiety cues. Now, we know we're pretty familiar with hunger cues. You've heard your stomach growl. But when it comes to satiety cues, we've really kind of muted them because we tend to overeat. And we tend to ignore our body's cues. And so satiety cues are a way for you to tap into your satiation. And satiation is different than fullness. And so when I start to teach my clients about the hunger scale, I like to teach them that satiety is several bites before fullness. So on the hunger scale, you have 0 and then you have 10. Okay, so 10 is super full. You need to get dragged out of the restaurant, unbutton the pants, you feel sick and nauseous. And then 0 would be hangry, you haven't eaten, you're gonna rip somebody's head off, possibly eat an arm, you're going to zombie land, okay? So we got these two really intense extremes. And right in the middle is neutral, so that would be 5. And 5 is it's kind of like you just ate maybe an hour ago and you feel fine and you don't need to eat any more food. You're kind of in this like very neutral position. Right after 5, somewhere about 6.5, 7 is usually about the satiation level, okay? And then a little bit below 5 is like 3, 2.5, and that is usually where it's a good time to eat. And in the intuitive eating world, it's interesting because I don't research it too much because I kind of like to stay in my own lane, but I've done research over the years as I was going through my journey, and I wanted to see what they recommended, because when you start to switch from dieting and restrictive eating to being able to just kind of live your life freely and eat what feels good and eat whatever when you need to and stop when you need to, it can be a little confusing and you need some tools to kind of help you through. So intuitive eating really prides itself on having no rules, but the way I teach intuitive eating, I want to give you like principles and like some guidelines that you can use and make flexible to your life so that when you start to shift to an intuitive eating lifestyle, you kind of avoid some of the pitfalls that most of us tend to fall into, which is overeating and binging on food because you finally are allowed to, and the kind of guilt and shame that comes with overeating, okay? So I like to use the hunger scale, especially when I'm talking to clients, like knowing in your own body what your hunger cues are. And we've all heard that if you're dehydrated, that you can also get fake hunger pains, which is true. So if you've experienced hunger pains and then you drank water and then you realize the hunger went away, that's a great example. So it's always important to know what other hunger cues besides your stomach growling is super important to know about so that you know you're actually hungry. Because most of the time, I don't know about you guys, but I've been in this industry for a long time, but there was a few years where it was like, eat 6 meals a day. You've got to eat 6 meals a day because you've got to keep your metabolism going. And when you're constantly eating every 2 to 3 hours throughout the day, you kind of don't experience hunger. Like they always used to say, like, you need to avoid getting hungry. You need to avoid getting hungry. And it's a concept that I even used to talk about and I used to teach. And after living that way for a long time, I didn't know what my hunger cues were. And so all I knew was my stomach is growling. That must mean I'm hungry. But that's not always true. It could be that you're dehydrated, right? So it's important to know what your hunger cues are, and it's important to know what your satiety cues are. Most people have no freaking idea, neither did I, what their satiety cues are. Most of us know when we're too full, and that experience is something that's obvious to us. It registers in our head, especially like on holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, you name it. We tend to overeat. That's like our MO, okay? Because it's like there's an abundance of food everywhere, and then we leave and we feel exhausted and we feel tired. So fullness, eating till you're full, usually makes you tired, makes you lazy. You go into a food coma, you need to lay down, you got to unbutton your pants. Like, you guys know how that is. We all do, right? I think America is pretty familiar with overeating. Most of us do it a lot. And the satiety cues is something very different. So for me, I've gotten to the point where I'm like even last night we went out to dinner, and I remember like looking at my plate of food, which most food is, it's huge. Like what we get now when we go to restaurants, the amount of food on our plate is like insane, right? It could easily be 2 meals. And we, most of the time, especially if you were raised in a house where your parents or guardians, whoever said, eat everything on your plate before you get up to leave the table, like that can be a lot of food. And so for a lot of people, what happens is they eat all that food, and then the hormones in your body, there's 2 main hormones. There's ghrelin and then there's leptin. And when you overeat, you actually knock those hormones off balance. So you can no longer tell when you're actually reaching satiety, and you keep eating thinking you're still hungry when actually you're almost full. When you stop, slow down, and then you get up, you're like, oh my gosh, I am way too full. And so this overeating and restrictive eating knocks all of our hormones off balance, and we are unable to tell when we're actually hungry and full. It's seriously crazy. Like the amount of research and like things that I have looked into when it comes to satiation and hunger blows my freaking mind. And I know it to be true because I've experienced it myself, and I've talked to other people who have. So in the intuitive eating paradigm, we talk about how to get your hormones back on track, how to rebalance your hormones, and how to know what your satiety cues are. So I encourage you over the next 2 days to pay attention to what you're eating, like how much food is actually on your plate. And if you keep eating everything on your plate, how are you going to feel at the end of your meal? And this can ruffle feathers because a lot of people, I feel that I've seen in the intuitive eating community, tend to say you should eat as much as you want. But in my opinion, you should eat as much as your body requires and then stop so that you don't feel tired, lazy, lethargic, food coma, because that isn't really serving you any good. And I'm very much based on what's still healthy and not indulging in bad habits in the name of intuitive eating. I'm very different in that sense. And I'm glad I am, because I don't want to guide someone into overeating, telling them that they're eating intuitively, because I don't believe that. I believe that you need to understand what your hunger cues are, what your satiety cues are, and know for you when exactly to start and stop eating. And it takes practice. And one of the best ways to really tap into what these cues are for your body and for your metabolism and what you need based on your daily activity and what's happening in your life is to do what's called mindful eating. Now, I'll be honest, the first time I ever did mindful eating, I was like, this is so boring. So boring, like mindful eating. So if you've never heard of mindful eating, I'll quickly tell you. If you're jumping on, say hi. So mindful eating includes 5 things, okay? But it's really, really simple. You're sitting down, okay? So you're not standing, you're sitting down. 2, there's no distractions, okay? So no TV, no phone, no chatting it up with somebody at your desk. So you're not really even sitting at your desk if you eat at your desk for work or for lunch. So you're sitting down, there's no distractions, so no phone, no TV, any of that. And then you are completely chewing your food before taking another bite and swallowing before you take another bite. So you're actually present with your food. And then there's appreciation, gratitude for how the food came to be on your plate and how it made its way there, from the farmers to the truck driver to the person at the grocery store to now you buying it, even showing appreciation and gratitude for yourself for having it on your plate. And then also the last thing is ideally it's plant-based, okay? So we learned about this when I was going through my yoga teacher certification, and we were encouraged to do 1 mindful meal a day. Because of the awareness and respect for your body, because your body is a temple and it's going to carry you through the rest of your life. So being really present with what's on your plate is something that I encourage my clients to do, because most of the time we fill our plate up, we grab our phone, we watch something on our phone, we're talking to somebody, we turn on the TV, we eat, and then we overeat because we're not paying attention. And then the satiety cues never really register in our brain because we're not even paying attention to what's on our plate. So we go through this process, which I call mindless eating. So it's the opposite of mindful eating. So mindful eating is like the counter effect of mindless eating. And we talk about the 6 different styles of eating in the intuitive eating paradigm. And mindful eating allows you to really tap into your hunger and your satiety cues. So for somebody that's coming from a restrictive eating background or has struggled with overeating and binge eating, listening and tapping into those cues is so freaking important. It's one of the biggest tools that we use in order to avoid binge eating, because a lot of people who want to become an intuitive eater have really struggled with binge eating. And even people who are on diets and do restrictive eating, they can be a restrictive eater and still be a binge eater. There's times where I in the past have overate way too much, or I've had so much sugar, such a bad addiction to sugar, that I've ate so much where I feel like so sick. And so in the intuitive eating paradigm, we talk about all of that. So mindful eating is one of the biggest tools to tap into your hunger and satiety cues. And then on the hunger scale, you can really see where you fall and see, okay, this is how I feel when I'm truly hungry. And if I go past this point, I know that I'm going into like the danger zone, essentially. So like, have you ever felt hangry? Like hangry, like that, I feel that. Like I feel that in my soul. When I'm hangry, I'm like, I'm not the same person. And then if I go too long, oh man, it gets worse. It spirals out of control. And then if I eat past satiation, I can tell, like I can absolutely tell. And satiation, again, for me is a few bites before being full. And I think that there's different levels of fullness. They're like, oh my gosh, I ate too much. And then there's like, okay, I'm literally sick. I wish I didn't do that. And for a lot of people who have done a lot of restrictive eating in the past who end up binging, they get to the point where they're sick, and binge eating can turn into bulimia and so on and so forth. And it's crazy, and it seems so wild that we have this dynamic relationship with food where we can overeat, binge eat, restrict, and we don't know how to listen to our body. And in the intuitive eating, I help you tap into your body's innate wisdom and awareness through slowing down, because we're running like chickens with our heads cut off, running around our life, trying to get all the things done. And in this program, we slow it down, because if we just keep running around and doing things the way we usually do them, it's going to be really hard to create change. So now that we've tapped onto the first topic of this live, I want to talk to you about building self-trust, because this, for a lot of people, including myself, when I was transitioning from restrictive eating to intuitive eating, I had to build self-trust, because I was the kind of person who was like, I won't eat cookies for a week. I won't eat pancakes. I'm not going to eat this. I'm not going to do that. And I would tell myself, like, I'm not going to eat these things. And then the next day I was like, I'm going to eat it. Natural born rebel. Like, tell me I can't do something. I tell myself I can't do something. And then I'm like, watch me do it. I don't know if you guys are like that, but if somebody tells me not to do something, I'm going to do it. Or if somebody tells me to do something, I'm not going to do it. It's just annoying. So I want to talk to you about building self-trust, because this is one of the biggest, most important things, because when you can trust yourself, it's a beautiful relationship you can have with yourself. And self-trust to me is also self-respect. And if you are somebody that you've struggled with eating your entire life, whether that's binge, restrictive, all of the above, you've had a relationship with food that has to do with guilt and shame and frustration and all of those things, having self-trust around food is something that does take time, and it is a skill. And I want to give you a few things that you can do in order to start to build that self-trust. So one of the first things I want to ask you and encourage you to kind of discover within yourself is, where with food do you feel like you can't trust yourself? And really think about this. Like, when you eat, or when you think about eating, or when you are craving something, or when you tell yourself, oh, I can't have that, what is the belief system? What is the thought process behind this? Why do you have this kind of thought process? So for me, it was, if I eat sugar, if I eat the carbs and everything like that, I'm gonna gain weight. And if I gain weight, then people won't look at me as a professional in this industry of health and fitness and all the things. And so it was kind of like, if I ate this, then I'm a bad person, I'm shameful, and how dare I, because I'm a fitness instructor and I'm teaching people about fitness, and I should never eat these things. And I created this thought in my head. And it could be something totally different for you. So where did this thought process come from about what you should and should not do, and what you can and cannot have, aside from the diet telling you? Like, why did you agree to doing this, and what is it that is driving that behavior and that thought process? Really think about that. because getting to the core of that belief is going to be really important for you creating change. And knowing that you can change your beliefs is one of the biggest and most important things we do in the intuitive eating paradigm, because most of the time our beliefs are kind of running the show in the background. It's, we've been programmed to believe things throughout our life, whether it's through our childhood or our experiences or our environment, whatever it is, and we just kind of blindly go along with it. And if you grew up in a home where maybe all the people in your home and all of your aunts and uncles, everybody was always dieting, then maybe it was a norm for you to just start dieting. Maybe you 12 or 13 years old and everybody was dieting, so that's what you did too. And you never thought twice about it. And it was just diet to diet to diet. Or it was really restrictive eating, or maybe a guardian, a parent, a sister, sibling, brother, or cousin, or aunt, uncle, or somebody at school said something to you that really hurt your feelings, and they're like, why do you eat so much? Or you're fat, or if you keep eating that, you're gonna get fat. Those things that come up, and those kinds of things, they stay with us. So looking and discovering what's behind that. Second step is, in order to start to shift that belief, we need to look for evidence on the contrary. We need to look for evidence and wins, successes from our past to start to build a different belief and to start to build that self-trust. So where in your life have you kept your word to yourself? And where in your life have you said you were going to do something and you truly committed and you stayed no matter what? So for me, finding those small wins was so helpful, because it made me realize, like, okay, I've committed to something and I've followed through. I can do this. And that really helped me. But at the same time, I knew in my brain that I was also calculating all the ways that I said I was going to do something and didn't follow through. And so it's so important to build that evidence so that you have those wins in the back of your mind that you can reference when things get tough. Because when you switch to an intuitive eating lifestyle and you are afraid that you're going to binge on certain food and you don't know when to stop because you haven't listened to your satiety cues, because you have a habit of overeating, it's important to remind yourself of the things that you've committed to and you've followed through with. So if you want to commit to listening to your satiety cues, it's creating small wins and finding small wins. And that's the other thing. Creating small wins is my final third tip for building self-evidence or self-trust, is to literally create small wins for yourself. So when you sit down to eat a meal, say, okay, this is going to be my mindful meal. I'm not going to engage in distraction. I'm not going to get up. I'm going to eat my entire bite and swallow before I take my next bite. And then I'm going to listen to my body and see how I feel. And then from there, I will figure out my satiety cues. You might just commit to one mindful meal a week, or one mindful meal a day even. You could, up it that way. And then you can start to listen to your satiety cues there. So it's a different shift of being restrictive and being, overeating to, okay, I'm just going to become aware. Because two of the first big things we do in the intuitive eating paradigm is cultivate awareness and then forgiveness, and then healing, which goes along with forgiveness and awareness. So we kind of start to cultivate this awareness, forgiveness, healing trifecta within the first 2 weeks of the intuitive eating paradigm, because we want to create the mindset that you are very much able to listen to your body and not let food control you, because the diets and all of that have been controlling you for so long, telling you what you can and can't do, when you should start eating and when you should stop eating. So as you switch to an intuitive eating lifestyle, creating these small wins and saying, okay, I'm going to have one mindful meal a day, one mindful meal a week, I'm going to listen to my satiety cues, is going to be super helpful. And so we kind of go through all of that in the intuitive eating paradigm and create ways for you to get small wins and to have those small wins so that you can start to build that self-trust. Because for me at this point in my journey, there's still times where I'll overeat and then afterwards, I approach myself with much more self-love than I did in the past, and forgiveness, and be like, okay, I know how that feels. Like, I paid the consequence of overeating. Now I'm tired and like brain fog and all the things. And then there's times where, you know, I've stopped eating and I feel amazing. And I know I know the difference between the two. It's tangible. I can tell. But when you're just shifting through it, you don't know the difference. So slowing down and being aware is one of the most important ways that we start to create change. And so for a lot of people, like, this is uncomfortable because in our life now, everything is go, 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 go. And it's like hustle, 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 get everything done, you know, accomplish this, accomplish that, da, 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 da. And that's wonderful. And there's a lot of like yang energy going around, but we need to slow down. We need the yin. We need to like become aware and like sit and eat our food and like come back to like the roots of it and like go back to what's on your plate and tap into your body and how do you feel and does this food serve you, and really kind of dissect everything that we were programmed, and then really get to choose what we want our lifestyle to look like. So yesterday I asked you, is what you're doing sustainable? And if it's not, then what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do if what you're doing right now isn't sustainable? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years if you continue doing what you're doing? Because I've talked to so many women who are like, Abby, my metabolism is shot. Like, my adrenals, they're done. Like, I don't know what I can do. I just keep gaining weight. And I've tried this diet. I've cut my carbs. I've cut my calories. I'm working out twice a day. I don't know what to do. And it's kind of like, if you've ever seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I love this part. He says, pop down, do less, pop down. When he's teaching him to serve, he's like, pop down, do less. And that's a big part of what I teach. It's like, we need to do less. Like, stop working out twice a day. We got to stop counting calories. We need to slow down, become aware, forgive, heal, and then we can start to tap into that, our body's awareness and intuition. So that is all I've got for you guys today. Our final workshop will be tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Tomorrow we're talking about guilt and shame around food, which is huge, because guilt and shame, if it's an emotion that you live in quite often, if you feel guilty and shameful throughout the day, like you didn't text somebody back, or you feel bad about eating this food, or I should have worked out today, and you have all these shoulda, woulda, couldas, and you're always in a place of feeling guilty, like you should have done something or you shouldn't have eaten this, tomorrow's going to be really, really good, because tomorrow I'm going to show you guys how to ditch the guilt and shame around food, and I'm going to start giving you some like steps to really work towards, because that work is so good and it's so freeing once you can start to separate your emotions from your food. Most of the time we have them like all mixed up together, emotions and food, and we start to, in the intuitive eating paradigm, separate the two so that you don't feel that guilt and shame around food. So I'm really excited for tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Again, this replay will be live for 48 hours. Then it's going out to my email subscribers. So if you would like to keep this video, it'll go there. It'll also become part of the bonuses in the intuitive eating paradigm. And with that being said, the intuitive eating paradigm cart doors are now open. So if you are interested in joining the intuitive eating paradigm, it is a 6-week program. Prior, it was 4 weeks, but now it's 6. We're going to have 2 weeks of like really big integration, a lot of healing, a lot of forgiveness going on, and then so many powerful tools. If you enjoyed today, I'm going to be giving the email subscribers the hunger scale. Again, the hunger scale is not my tool. It's one that's been passed on through all the different coaches in the health and fitness field, but I'm going to give you my hunger scale and a blank hunger scale so that you can fill it out for yourself, as well as tips for mindful eating. So if you would like that, I'm going to post a link in the comment section after this, and you can enter in your email. You'll get an email by Monday on the tools for that, and then a free live training that I did for the intuitive eating paradigm about how to survive parties, vacations, and gatherings while you shift to intuitive eating from dieting. So those bonuses will all be included and be sent to the email subscribers. Again, this workshop will only be live for 48 hours, and then I'm taking it down. It's getting sent to the email subscribers and then put as a bonus for the intuitive eating paradigm. So if you are interested in joining the intuitive eating paradigm, you've got questions, you want to just chat and see if it's the right fit for you, send me a message. I really want the people who are interested in this program to truly want to be there. Like, I'm not going to convince you to do it. That's not my jam. So if you are looking for help, message me. Let's see if it's a good fit. If it's not, that's totally fine. If you are ready for this work, then let's chat. Otherwise, you guys have a happy Saturday. My husband and I are going to Universal Studios today to go to Harry Potter World. So I'm so excited. Yes, I'm a Harry Potter freak. Other than that, you guys, hope you have a happy Saturday. If this was helpful, don't forget to like and share it with somebody or post it in a group if you find it helpful. Again, message me if you have any questions, and I will catch you on the next live. Thank you guys so much for jumping on. For those of you guys who've been here live, I appreciate you. I love you. I hope today's been helpful. And for anybody watching the replay, just say replay and then comment below, and I will interact with you as if you were live. Otherwise, you guys, happy Saturday. Bye.